Namaste, everybody, and welcome back to Kio World, your soul podcast for inner peace. My name is Kristina, and I'm very grateful that you are for the first time here or back into the podcast show. And today I will speak with you about how you can study yourself. How can you be able to read yourself, and who is actually yourself, right? What does it mean to study yourself? What does it mean to study yourself from a yogic perspective? Because as you know, we are going in the moment through the 10 yamas and niyamas in the yogic tradition, and these are 10 paths to enlightenment. These are 10 paths to really find out who you are. And today we are coming really to an end with the series, and we are in the 9th episode, so we will just have one more to go. And I shared in the last episode with you that I don't know, and I thought, to be honest, for the first time, about if the yamas and niyamas are like in a sequence of how challenging it can maybe be to overcome that certain path, right? For example, the path of non-violence, the path of being honest, the path of attachment, right? And so today we are speaking about the self-study. So I will share with you who is yourself, what is really the difference of just thinking about yourself and really seeing yourself, knowing really deep down who you really are, and what can be the challenge, right? Like, what can be the challenge on the path of self-study, and what does it mean from a yogic perspective? Like, in what ways can we literally self-study ourselves? What do we have for practices, and what can support us? And about all, for what should we even start to study yourself, and why some people do avoid it. And today, the first time in the episode, I think we never pulled cards together, guys, right? So I have my angel guide with me, my oracle deck. It's a beautiful, beautiful deck, and you will receive a message. So I will pick 3 cards, and you will be able to tune into a number and then receive your message regarding to the topic of today, what you might have to learn on your path of Svadhyaya, like on the path of studying yourself. So I'm so excited. Let's dive in. Take a deep breath in through your nose, really fully taking this deep breath in, holding your breath, leaning a bit more back into the seat where you're in, or being just more comfortable in the body. Exhaling, grabbing your favorite drink if you have one, and let's enjoy this time here together. What do you think when you think, for example, about yourself, right? Like, maybe just check in with you. What does it really mean for you, right? Is yourself, like, when you think about yourself, do you think about your individual self? Do you think about the collective self? Does yourself or your higher self is for you really in a more wider context, in a more spiritual context, that you think, okay, myself is where my home is. Myself is connected to where I'm coming from. Myself is actually connected to source, because we need to understand the paradox in that, right? So, understanding yourself, understanding who you are, will allow you to go beyond your individual self, and it will allow you to understand consciousness. Studying yourself and understanding your individual self will give you the awakening of understanding the collective self, of understanding source. So, as the yogis already knew, like many years ago, there are 2 ways how you can study yourself. So check in now with yourself. What do you do to study yourself, right? And it's actually very interesting that In school, we don't have a topic or a lesson which is just called self-study, right? Like in the Western world, we study so many different things, right? Just think about it. We study mathematics, we study maybe sport or biology or languages, which are, of course, amazing tools. However, how can we ever like find fulfillment in those things if we don't study it ourselves first, right? Because you walk through this life every day, every single second with your individual self. So the yogis knew there are two ways. There are two ways. One way is through the practice. You can study yourself by different practices that connect you inward to yourself. And then there is like, this is the self-study. And then the self-study, the second path is through studying wisdom by, for example, reading books, reading scriptures, working with teachers, working with a guide, going to trainings, and doing things like that. So there is more of a practice where you get external information from the right sources, of course. It's very important where we're getting this information from, because you want to find something out about yourself, right? So the best way and how I did it in my life and what really changed my life was that when it was about everything that comes to self-study, I had always a calling. And to be honest, even I think, just let me think before I'm saying something that's not correct, but like, no, I think that literally, really, even yes, no, it was exactly like this. Every single training I did, for example, in my life, it literally came to me, right? And I remember when I did my very first yoga teacher training, how my mom said to me, do you don't want to look into other yoga schools? Do you don't want to compare them? Or, for example, check the prices? And I was just like, no, like I didn't care if there was a other offer or another training that would maybe be whatever, cheaper, more expensive in another place in the world, right? And literally the location of my training changed. So the first training route didn't happen. So I needed to travel a little bit farther. It was still in the same country. So it was still back then in Germany. And I just knew, because I had the calling to go exactly there, to receive my learnings there, that this was my path. And this is how I, I did then the training. And I believe that when we have callings in our life, and I'm actually now traveling soon back to Germany to participate in another training. And for me, just now I realized that this was also a calling, right? Finding out about the school, the teachers. And very often, what I observe is that people, they try to be so logical in their mind. They really try to not make anything wrong, not making a wrong mistake or a wrong decision, and then they choose between or think like, oh, should I go there or should I go there? And that actually already reveals that sometimes if you also observe yourself in a situation like this, that actually means that you are disconnected from yourself. And when you are disconnected from yourself, what do you think were a decision in your life that you may do while you are disconnected from yourself, right? And when you, for example, are just in your mind, like, where will the outcome bring you? Very often, not less closer to your heart. This is also why I observe when people, for example, you know, just watch the intention. We also spoke about that. Just watch the intention of people. And when sometimes people don't have a clear intention, when they don't know why they are doing things, then the less clearer is the outcome. Or let's say, for example, when we're speaking just now about topic of the training, is that when someone does a training without a real calling behind it, without a real intention that comes from the heart, very often people then, never really find the fulfillment they want, or they don't really get then out what they maybe expected or wished for getting out from the training, right? If they don't really follow a calling, or yes, if they are doing it out of the wrong reasons, right? And I'm not saying, because I mean, in this world today there are so many trainings, and I still also, stand firm to my opinion that also the trainings I'm offering within Kyo Yoga, that when you do a training, it doesn't has to mean that you immediately become a teacher, for example, of teaching classes, etc. However, you do a training for a specific transformation you're looking for, and you do it because you have a certain calling deep in your soul, right? Why you really want to do, for example, a life-changing experience like that, right? And going into studying yourself deeper. So you can study yourself by going inward and coming to the practices I will share later with you, or by, as we now discovered, studying books, getting other resources, and studying through that path yourself. At what time in life do people normally start to study themselves? Actually, we all do it in the moment when we are born into this world. We are very much connected to ourselves, to source, right? When we are children, we are very sensitive. We are very connected to all that is. And then through the time, we are getting programmed from all the informations that are coming into our system. And then we are building an identity around who we are and who we think we should be, right? And this is, I'm sure you also experienced that in your life, right? Just ask yourself, for and through how many identity shifts did you went, right? I mean, I know through how many identity shifts in a way I went in through my life. But even here, when you think back, there is always this unchangeable I am inside you. The, how we say in yoga, the observer, something that really didn't change. And I'm not speaking about the mind or the voice, right? This inner feeling of the present moment, this inner feeling of feeling the observer. And only when we are coming and when we are becoming the observer in the present moment, right, then we are able to not only think about ourselves, then we are able to see ourselves, then we are able to experience ourselves. And I could, of course, now and at the end, that path is also a journey for every one of us on their own, right? It's beautiful that in yoga we have these 10 paths, right? We have practices that help you to, to reach enlightenment, right? To be guided to something where maybe some people even don't know what is enlightenment, right? What does it mean? And who knows what samadhi truly means? However, there are teachers and people in our life that are guides on our way, right? We have Svadhyaya in yoga, so that we know there are ways that we can study ourselves, that we can find this connection back home. There is just very one important thing that you have to know is that anyone who wants to interfere into this path between you and God has no right to do that. No one can explain you how to meditate, how to reach samadhi, what enlightenment really is, who God is, who yourself is, right? There are many practices that can support us because, or also, for example, places that we go to, places where we are remembering, right? Like communities where we just feel so at home that we can be ourselves. And when we have an environment where we feel that we can be ourselves, where our body can relax, then most likely we are also really able, when the nervous system is calm, to then to really develop this connection and to go on that journey, because the journey of studying yourself is a journey and it needs to have, if you want to make it like very conscious and very aware, and if you want to choose self-study as a path, then it needs structure and it needs the right motivation, the right tapas, the fire, the inner discipline behind it. It needs all of the yamas and niyamas that we spoke now about, right? It needs a nonviolent mind. It needs 100% honesty from yourself. It needs you to be able to manage and to be able about how energy is moving, right? Like where we are bringing our energy to, like where we are getting energy from, like where we can lose our energy. How important it is to have the body clear, the space you are in clear, the mind clear. How important it is to detach ourselves from different things so that we are even able to go on that path of self-study. Because on that path of self-study, you need to have, of course, as less distraction as possible. And this is also why the more distracted you are, the less space you create within yourself, and the harder it will be ever to be connected to yourself. So if you feel that in the moment you go through a period where you think, I'm not longer connected to synchronizations around me, I'm not longer connected to, to myself, to my body, to my voice, the best thing you can do back then is not to get even more information into your system. The best is then to, at first, do the practice and then to study. Okay, so at first, to make the practice to really purify body, mind, and soul, to make space for new information, to then be also able to really observe and understand it from a different lens, to understand it from a different perspective. Which new information about myself and life am I now taking in? So, thinking about yourself, thinking in your mind about a concept, who am I? Where is this going? Where is life going, right? What happens after death, right? It will always keep you in the loop of the mind, right? I'm sure that maybe some of you also asked yourself the question when you were a child, when you were younger, and you thought, okay, what does infinity mean, right? Like, how big is our universe? And in the mind, we will never find a question to it. So, for us being able to really see ourselves, we have to come into practice, or we have to come into stillness to create space. And also, that is a practice. So, why can it be so difficult? And why do a lot of people avoid meeting themselves? Because, as I just shared now, is that normally the moment you are born into this world, you are here for having an experience of your beautiful self. Your soul came here to experience life, to have a human experience. And throughout our life, we are all making different experiences. We are all collecting different memories. We are all creating and experiencing different moments. We all travel to different places. We meet different people. We are collecting different informations. And we are also going, of course, through pain, right? Through losses, through heartbreak, through grief, through personal challenges, through moments where we feel very alone, very isolated, not maybe understood by anyone, maybe not even our family, not by our partner, right? And we need to understand we all go through that. And sometimes when we are in the fast pace of life, then and when we have then in this fast pace of life, and when we then created an identity around us, where we kind of escaped maybe from some things I was so new or I was so wanted actually to maybe do different, right? And then when we are in our own bubble, in our own universe that we created, sometimes it's very hard to leave that space, to leave this comfort zone, to leave the space where we have the control about everything, where we know how the day looks like, where we think we know how the next day looks like, where we think we know how our life could maybe look like in some years, right? When we're speaking now, for example, about, paying into insurances, paying into insurers for when you're retired, right? Like we are all just also here trusting concepts, right? Like when you, for example, no matter which insurance you have, right? Like where you pay every month so much money in because you pay the money because you have fear that one day like this could happen or that could happen, right? Like not the trust into the day, not the trust that God will always provide for you, that you are held by a very greater source, and that we, cannot live the day by just trying to survive another day, right? Like then we are not living really today. And this is, of course, created out of fear. And stepping sometimes out of that concept can be very hard, leaving this comfort zone. Because, of course, why is it called a comfort zone? Because it feels nice, because it feels good. And we are then always in the experience that we are known. And stepping out of it can sometimes feel fearful. It is the unknown. And it is actually very sad, right? That we are here with the source within you, within us. You are here with the source within you. You are here with the source around you, and you can have access to it in every single second. And still, so many people are choosing not to connect to that, to disconnect them from themselves through so many experiences. And the beautiful thing is that when you connect more and more with yourself, when you are on the path of studying yourself, on the path of Svadhyaya, it doesn't mean that you can't do and continue to do the things that you enjoy to do in your life, right? You are still able to do all of them. However, you will enjoy them differently, right? Like, why should you go that path of studying yourself, of looking at triggers, looking at your roots, exploring shadows, right? Like doing shadow work. Why should you do that? Because then you are able to be more connected to yourself and to be in every moment more aware, to be in every moment more alive, to take life not that serious, to walk through life with less fear. And when you walk through life with less fear, of course, what will you do? Different decisions, decisions that are really coming from yourself. when you know yourself, then you are, of course, what? More self-confident, right? The self-confidence is connected to our energy center, to our third energy center on your solar plexus, right? And we will dive in the next episodes through the energy centers, which will also be a very interesting journey. So, when you are working on your core, right? Like, and literally on the physical body, when we are in yoga and Kundalini yoga, working on the self confidence, we're always working with the core. And we know that so many of us, how hard it is to work on the apps, right? Like, how hard it is to work like on this core of our beautiful human vessel. However, when we are strengthening our core, where we have in Kundalini yoga a lot of navel exercises, then you are able to connect more to yourself, to be more confident. And again, when you are more confident, you also make different decisions. So, why? Of course, if you don't have fear, you make different decisions because they are then trust based and not fear based. And when you are self confident, you make different decisions because you don't make decisions by trying to impress anyone else, right? You will make different decisions connected to all the topics related we talked about in the previous episodes, right? Different decisions, maybe in your food choices, in how you dress yourself, in what for a place you're living in what kind of relationships you are, in what kind of relationships you don't want to be longer in, what kind of job do you choose, right? Like, who do you really do it for? There, could be, for example, a moment where, and I heard a lot of women who, for example, had breast implants, right? And made some changes internally, surgeries in their body. And they said, like, yes, they did it because they, changed the breasts because they wanted to feel more confident. And they just felt so much better. And years later, they changed their opinion because they said, actually, it was not about being, of course, yeah, they built the confidence, but not for themselves. They built it because they wanted to impress other people. And this is always what we have to ask ourselves, right? If you feel that in your face you have like a small little wrinkle, like, is it really bothering you? Is it really bothering yourself? Because just think about that. How would you look at yourself if you wouldn't see yourself in a mirror? Right? Like, if there is no reflection of just a physical image that you have, what would you think about yourself? Like, would it really bother you how big or small your breasts are, for example? And when we have those areas in our body that we feel not comfortable with, there are, of course, two truths behind it, right? Let's say you are extremely overweight, all right? Overweight because you have a food addiction. Saying now, okay, I'm avoiding to look into the mirror, like avoiding to look at myself, is of course a rejection of yourself. So it doesn't mean like, okay, now I'm not caring about what other people thinking. It's about what do you really feel about yourself. So the path of accepting yourself is a path that costs discipline because yourself has, of course, some expectation towards yourself, right? To be comfortable, right? Like, your soul came here and will guide you and will always tell you, for example, okay, like your soul, there's a difference when your soul will tell you, for example, hey, I really think you should do fast. I really think you should change your nutrition. Then the soul would say to you, I don't like your brown eyes, or your breasts are too small, too big, right? Like, there is a very big difference. And then again, when we are deciding to have our identity shifts, right? Or to change our clothing, again, is it coming out of fear or out of trust? And are your decisions coming out of a connection to yourself? Because yourself is pushing you, for example, also now into a phase where you really should master your body and work on your muscles. Or do you things and changes in your life regarding what other people think about you? Because then you are again outside and not not connected to yourself. So it can be difficult, and we all also are on different stages on our journey. There are different stages on the path to awakening. We have also an extra episode here in the podcast show about that, so that you can really know when do you go through which stage, and when is your mind telling you, like, which kind of stories, and when, will you try to understand things more in the mind, and yeah, just like with the head, and when is it important to go to practice, when is it really about surrendering, and all of that. So you can go back to this. Yes, looking at trauma isn't always easy. And I just observed this, for example, now by tapping into the field of systemic family constellations, that some people really have a calling, even if they don't know what it is. It was the same for me. We are back to the calling, right? I experienced my first family constellation by just experiencing a first family constellation, right? Like, so it came literally to my field. And sometimes people don't know in their mind what something is, and you really feel already, no, 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 no. I'm not ready for that. And what is, of course, the biggest part of a family constellation? Revealing hidden dynamics, forces that we are not seeing, that are influencing our life, and bringing the subconscious mind to the conscious, right? And it's just always fascinating that this field really reveals the truth. So, through what ways can I study now myself? So, I would recommend to you, if you want to go onto the path of Svadhyaya, then if you in the moment have the feeling of reading something, then start reading, right? I will, here in the podcast show, in the notes, I will share 2 or 3 books with you that really supported me on my journey. All right. Maybe they are already familiar to you, maybe not. And then just start to read something, right? Start reading something and try to go to classes, to lessons, to speeches, right? Like do retreats, do trainings, right? Like have experiences where you work with teachers from the field, right? Like in the field and on the path of yoga, who are really also speaking about the core of yoga and unity, right? And about consciousness. So you can do that. If you want to go to if you want to start with the other path, right? You just choose what do you want to do in the moment, or if you even combine them both, then you want to go to your practice. And there are different ways. One very common way is, of course, the path of journaling. Journaling, writing, free writing, setting yourself a timer for 10 minutes, or getting support by, today we have so many journals. There are so many journal books out to related topics or with specific questions. So just be reminded about writing and journaling. And just for you to understand, because I know we hear always often journaling, journaling, why should I journal? And just know that in the moment when you write, and you should write with the hand, in that moment, you are doing what? You are just with yourself. It's not about the outcome. It's not about that you write something where you feel, because when you, of course, write, because you think, oh my God, I want an outcome again. Now I was writing down and my thoughts and it didn't help me and all of that. And I actually feel even more frustrated. Then you miss the practice. The practice is writing with yourself. This is why so many people, when they, for example, come to a practice or a yoga practice, or I experience, of course, some people who come to a Kundalini yoga class when you sometimes never see people again because they just had what? Not a nice practice. So they didn't want to continue the not nice practice because they just want everything to be easy, everything to be nice, not having any challenge. And the beautiful thing is, of course, there are so many practices outside. So you can, of course, choose something that resonates with you as well or change the practice. But of course, we are practicing to be in the practice with the self. Why we say in Kundalini Yoga, every morning when you wake up, do your sadhana. You have been then already connected with yourself. It's not about the practice, it's about the connection you have to yourself when you are in the practice. So the next time when you write, keep this in your mind for knowing it's already about the time you have in that moment with yourself. Either it's 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 10 minutes, or maybe longer. The next step is going for a walk, spending time in nature, spending time in stillness just with yourself. No podcast, no voice notes, no phone, sitting in nature, being in nature, walking, going for a hike, and just having an experience that you really own it with yourself. And if this is already scaring you, then you know, of course, where you have to practice. Another way is fasting. Yeah, distracting yourself once through any outer noise, being in stillness, and then fasting, right? The point also comes now to me because I'm doing a water fast in the moment. And at the end, when we're fasting, it's again about our mind and about not being distracted, not being distracted from any other things, like, for example, food. Like food, drinks, sweets, it takes so much time in our life, which is amazing, right? It's not about like never eating again. It's amazing to enjoy what we eat, to choose our food very consciously. However, why is fasting bringing you more back to yourself? Because when you fast, you cut out all the things, and I'm sure that also in your life are some things that you shouldn't be eating, that you shouldn't be drinking, or not in that amount you're doing it. And by having the strict line of reducing all of them and bringing your body, of course, onto a journey, you will detach yourself, right? We're back to aparigraha. You detach yourself then also to certain things. You will see them from a different perspective. And literally, your cravings will change because when you don't have the income, right? So many people who are also overweight, they are feeling emotional baggage, right? So when you then stop eating and sit with whatever arises, with the craving, the hunger, the angriness, the thoughts, the mind, the being bored, right? Like not being able maybe to go out, whatever it is, you will be more connected to yourself because you have to spend more time with yourself. And then your body will take you also on top through a purification process. And by that, after you will make what? Better choices. Another way to study yourself are, of course, all the other practices we have in yoga. Being in class, being in movement, right? Because again, what do you do then in class? And it really doesn't matter which class, you spend time with yourself. You spend time with your body. You spend time with a more connected breath, right? Like you spend time in the here and now. So going to practice, connecting with your breath, right? Meditating, going into advanced stages of meditation and having your own personal connection to yourself and finding your own practice. Another way are, of course, also family constellations. Because when we're going the path of understanding and having a look and being open to have a look, right? Because this is also doing the work, right? Like this is exactly doing the work, committing yourself, going to a family constellation, being open and vulnerable to really reflect also on what is my pattern, right? Some people might think at first, some people, they know exactly what they want to change. They have a list of, let's say, 1,000, whatever, problems, challenges that they want to work on in their life. But then if you really think about, and if you think then about, okay, what is really a pattern? In which dynamics am I in? You already start to reflect, right? Because some people never ask themselves the question, with what am I actually struggling? Like, what could work better? What became actually already my normal that I just think this is how life goes? But what if not? And what if it can be different? So, going to a constellation where we are working with the intuitive field requires, of course, already a very big commitment and being very self-reflected, being very, being very, being very mature and open, and yeah, being vulnerable and making this step to bring new movement into your life, to bring new perspectives into your life, to explore underlying dynamics, and to then come closer to yourself. Because everything that comes up from the unconscious mind to the conscious mind brings us closer to ourselves. And everything that we're clearing out in our life on that path brings us also closer to ourselves. Less distraction, more understanding. And it's, of course, also a beautiful root exploration of really understanding your roots. Who are my parents? What might have been like their desires, dreams, wishes? What were, who are my grandparents, right? Like, and their grandparents, and what actually is maybe even a pattern that repeated itself already in our family, and why is it like that? What happened at that time, right? Who was missing? Who was excluded? What was a family secret? What happened in the world history? So, of course, that brings us even already with our, with our ego mind beyond just us, right? It's us, 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 us. It's like, no, we are part of a wider, broad system. And yesterday I had a one-on-one constellation, and for me, as I'm just stepping now into this field of this work and being here in service, yeah, I was just like, yeah, at first very humbled and grateful that my client just said after, wow, this work of the systemic field is very impressive. And it just took me back to how, yeah, blown away I was after my first constellation. And that, yeah, his words, have also just been that I know now why you say like you have to experience it and you cannot explain it how it is with, yeah, so many of these things we're actually talking here in this podcast about. And I'm sure there are even so many more paths of how to study yourself. And one path is, of course, the oracle. So we're coming now, as promised, to this angel guide. And also here, why are cards helping us to reflect on ourselves? It's really less about like what is written on the card. It's about what do you interpret, right? I'm receiving sometimes the message, or after my classes when I'm opening the cards, like, what does it mean for you? Or how would you interpret it? And of course we can, if you, for example, I mean, I never had a card reading in my life at all. But if you would go to a card reading, right, like what anyone else is saying to you just helps you to feel, do you resonate with it or not? Right? I do believe that life is a mirror and everything is mirrored back to you. But it doesn't mean that your mirror shows you something. And I think this is where some people just misunderstand some things wrong. It doesn't always show you that what a person does means that you are exactly like that. It's just the mirror sometimes helps you to challenge yourself to decide how to react. Okay, and now, so let's get into it and take a couple of deep breaths and choose a number between 1, 2, and 3 in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go. Choose a number. You have your number. If you want to take 2 numbers, you can do. It's like with the cards, you can always take more. So let's get ready for everyone who picked the number 1. Oh, that's a strong one. So clear, cancel, and release. For those of you who have the video on, you can see the card. Number 1, clear, cancel, and release. Okay, number 2. Guys, you have very strong messages. Take a step back. And taking a step back, guys, it doesn't mean always, right? Just saying, now here's something for the interpretation with our card reading that, for example, right, take a step back. When we're looking now at Svadhyaya, how I told it to you, is that when we want to see ourselves, we have sometimes to step away back, right? Like if you are too close to any person in your life, if you're too far away, you don't see them. If you're too close, you can see them also. So ask yourself what it means for you. Where in your life, in some places, you need to take a step back. What doesn't mean, right? Like take a step back and end now a friendship or a relationship. Sometimes it's just good to step back, to allow in the room to be able that a new energy gets created. And just observe for you what your first thought was that came up, and also always know that depending how fearful you are, especially if you do, for example, things like, picking a card, don't let the mind kick in and understand it with your soul. All right, number 3. Power and intention. I never had this card before. It's a new deck, so I'm still exploring also these cards. So beautiful. Here. Can you see it? Yeah, now. Power and intention. So we have clear, cancel, and release. Take a step back. And power and intention. So It was beautiful to have you here today, guys. Let me know if you have any techniques and what really helped you of understanding yourself better and connecting more with yourself, what kind of identity shifts you might have experienced in your life. And yeah, then we're seeing us next time together in this podcast show with our final episode regarding the 10 yamas and niyamas, where it will be all about, connecting with this higher path. So wish you all the best. Take care of yourself. Namaste and speak to you soon.